Welcome to the second installment of my Python tutorial, and in this tutorial we're going to speak about functions and how they're used and what they are. But firstly, I forgot to mention one thing about input statements. So when you are getting input from a user, that input is a string. It is not, so if you type in an input as 21, the 21 will be a string, it will not be an integer. And since strings and numbers are handled differently by the computer, you have to change the string into an integer in order for it to do stuff like maths and that sort of thing. I'll talk a bit more about this later, but the function that we use is called eval, which converts a string into a number. So if we are evaling a string, it converts it into a number. Okay, so let's open up the terminal and go into our Python interpreter. Okay, so if we type in eval, or let's just say number equals, let's say a string, because of the inverted commas, number equals 21. So we can type in, so if we go number plus 23, it gives an error because it cannot convert integer object to string. So this is how eval works. So you type in eval, put your variable, which is number, which is a string. So if we evaling number, now it's 21. So we could say times equals eval number times 98. And that, once we call times, it gives us the answer, which is 2058. See, so eval changes a string into a number. So what happens if we type in eval Nick? It's an error, because if you're converting a string which actually cannot be converted into a number, it just won't work. Okay, back to my slideshow. So onto Python functions. So functions in programming are pretty much the same as in maths. I'm sure you all remember the f of x equals x plus 24. Let's give an example. So f of x would be the function and x would be the parameter. So if you put, let's say, 2 into this function as a parameter, you would get 26, because the x, the right hand side of the equal sign, would equal 2. So 2 plus 24 is 26. So simple enough. It's pretty much exactly what Python functions are. You can put parameters into functions and see which values come out of the function. So let's look at our first function. So this is the hello, I love CSC 1015F, which is the class which I took, because I am copying these slides, kind of. So what this function does is it defines, I actually can't use my mouse pointer, so I'm going to go into this mode. So how to define a function? Def defines a function hello. So this can be your function name, so you can make it anything. You can make it name, you can make it hello, you can make it hi, whatever. And then the brackets indicate the parameters. So this function not being defined with any parameters. So once the function's called, it just runs. You don't need to put anything into it. So in Python, instead of using brackets to show the scope of the function, so how big the function is, you actually just use indentations. So definitely just use the tab function, or you can use 8 spaces, but tabs, that's much better. So everything inside your hello function would have to be indented. So it can go like all the way down here, but it would have to be indented. So as soon as the indent stops, that means the function is over. So this function, the last line of indentation, is print I love CSE 1015. So how do you call a function? Very, very simple in Python. You literally just say hello and then the brackets, and then that calls the function. Yeah, let's have a look at this function in my IDE. So the IDE I'm using, by the way, is called PyCharm by JetBrains, and yeah, I think you have to pay for it, but I got it through like university, like free license type thing. But I highly recommend Wingware, which is what I use. It's super simple, it just works, it doesn't give you any issues. So just type in Wingware on Google, download that, and yep, see how that goes. So this is our function over here. We should be commenting what our program does. So print hello I love CS, yeah, whatever, by Nick Findlay, the date or whatever, 2017. Okay, so we define our function, which has the name hello, and then we're printing hello on the one line, and then printing I love CSE 1015 on the next line. So let us run this function. And now you can see here at the bottom, this is where everything sort of runs. It says process finish with exit code 0. Nothing has actually been printed into the console. Why is this? That is because the function has not been called. So having a function doesn't mean the program runs from top to bottom. You actually have to call it. So in order to call a function, just type in the function name just like that. Let's save and run one more time. So now you can see here, it says, hello, I love CSE 1015F. So there we go. Hello calls the function. So our second function can be here. We have called this function hello2. Why don't we call it get name? Okay, so this function get name, what does it do? So this function makes a variable name. It asks for input, what is your name? And it prints hello, your name 3 times, ends in 3 exclamation marks, and is separated. Each expression is separated by 3 dots. We did this in the previous tutorial. So let's call get name. Okay, now let's run it and see what we get. So it asks me here, what is your name? My name is Nick Findlay. Press enter, it says, hello, Nick Findlay, Nick Findlay, Nick Findlay. Okay, back to the slideshow. Now parameters. Functions can have changeable parameters or arguments that are placed within the parentheses. So here's another function. You can say, define greet person, print hello person, print how are you. Okay, oh my god, sorry. Let me copy paste this quickly. Okay, so this so this function is called greet, and it takes a parameter called person. So that inside the brackets, that is the parameter. So just like f of x, x would be person, which is a variable. So this function takes a variable called person, it prints hello, then the person's name, and then it prints how are you. So let's take an example. So we take n equals input, what is your name, and then we are calling the greet function with that variable n. So n would be given to this in the place of person. So person would be n. So let me run it. What is your name? Let's say Brandon. Enter. And now it says, hello Brandon, how are you? You have made AI, essentially. Not really. If you don't really understand, maybe just pause and look at it for a section. So def could pretty much be f of x. And then you can say print x. And then when you call the function f of 2, sorry, it says 2 over there. It prints everything else because I have not left that out. So let's leave that out actually. Then prints f of 2 because it's printing what you give the function as an argument. Okay, back to the slide rule. Okay, so what is the exact output of this code? So this is a program called 123, a Python program, as you can see by the suffix, and it defines a function called a that takes the arguments word 1, word 2, and word 3. So that's another thing with arguments and parameters. You can have as many of them as you want. You can have infinite, whatever. Just separate each one by a comma. So this function takes 3 arguments. It prints those 3 arguments in descending order, separates each one of them by 3 dots, and ends with the word stop. So this is pretty self-explanatory. I'm not actually going to type it out. So word 1 would be green, orange would be word 2, red would be word 3. So this would print red ... orange ... green ... stop. Pretty much what we'd be doing, so I'm not going to elaborate on that anymore. Okay, let's do this one. Okay, so here is the function. Remember, your indentations are really important in Python. So here's the function. So now we're printing testing, so that just prints because it's not indented, so it'll run no matter what. So we print testing, and then we give the variables x, y, and z the consecutive values of green, orange, and red. So when you write variable declarations like this, you're meaning x equals green, y equals orange, z equals z. So it all kind of works in order. And then you're calling the function a with the parameters x, y, z. So x, y, z are put into word 1, word 2, word 3. Then you're calling a again with z times 2, y times 2, and x times 2. So z times 2 would be red, red. So red, red would be word 1. Y times 2 would be orange, orange. So orange, orange would be word 2. And x times 2 would be green, green. So green, green would be word 3. Okay, so let's comment this out. So we just run the first one, just to see if we're right. So it says testing, red, ... orange, ... green, stop. Oh, sorry, I forgot the sep doesn't work after the last one. So there won't be a separator between the last expression and stop. Okay, so that all works out, just as we said. Okay, give me to comment that out. Okay, now let's bring back this function to life. And now let's print it. So it says testing, green, green, ellipsis, orange, orange, ellipsis, red, red, stop. See, so it uses 2 of the values in each parameter. So we're saying z times 2, which we can actually look here. So let's say name times 2. Remember that just prints name, name. It'll just print it twice because it is a string. Okay, there you go. So back to the slideshow, the last slide. So let's make a program that converts miles to kilometers. So if you're visiting the USA, 1 mile is 1.61 kilometers. So let's write a program to do this conversion. So we want to have an input to put into it. So you put in whatever amount of miles you're looking to convert, and then you convert to kilometers, and the output displays to the screen. The output would be in kilometers. Okay, so firstly, let's define a function called main. I forgot to I don't think I mentioned it. You put a colon at the end of the brackets to signify this is where the function starts, and then all your lines would be indented from there. So let's say miles equals input how many miles would. Okay, so this inputs a value of miles into this miles variable. But since we would type in an integer, so a number, so how many miles, we would say 21. We have to have an eval on this input in order to convert the integer. So then we can say the variable kilometers equals miles times 1.61. 61, I think it was. Yeah. And then so this is the input, this is the operation, and this is the output. So we would say print let's say miles equals, we can actually write it in there, equals kilometers. Okay, so we're printing out the number of miles, so let's say 21, and then it would say miles equals, and then the kilometers, which is miles times 1.61. And now we have to call the method main, and then this program should run. So let's run and see what we get. So how many miles would we like to convert? Let's say 82 miles. Enter. 82 miles equals 132.02 kilometers. What we actually should have said here is kilometers. Okay, let's run that one more time. So how many miles would we like to convert? Let's convert 987. Enter. 987 miles equals 159,000. No, what am I saying? 1,589 kilometers, pretty much. So we can kind of do other things to get rid of these decimals, but we'll do that later. So there you go, your first Python program. How many miles would you like to convert? And yeah, it all works out. You can add sort of fancy things like you can add print statements before, let's say, calculating. My bad. You can say like time.sleep. It's system.sleep. Okay, yeah, I forgot what that was. Okay, thank you for listening to another one of my shitty tutorials. I hope it brought some hope to your programming journey. Join me for the next time where we discuss loops and iterations and how you use loops and iterations in Python.